So what I'm going to do in this video is introduce you to the Pipe9 sales development application home screen. This is the home screen that George Beck, our superhero sales manager that I was talking about in one of the previous videos. Remember, George was the sales manager that was able to triple the likelihood that his sellers were top performers or became top performers, top solution sellers. And most importantly, he was able to improve the performance of that median group of his sales team, not the top sellers, not the bottom sellers, but the median group of sellers. He was able to improve their performance by 20%. And this is the sales development platform that George used. This is Pipe9. And this is the home screen. This is George's home screen. And it's real simple because what you see here is three steps towards sales development. 1, getting started. 2, viewing results. And 3, planning and executing the development of the sales team. This is what George used. Now, what does getting started mean? Step number 1. What getting started meant for George was that he was able to provide his sales team with the ability to complete their own self-feedback, and he was able to take manager feedback, or rather to give manager feedback to each member of his sales team. And remember what George did. George created this hypothesis of excellence that he referred to as an excellence profile. And it was the profile that he built with Pipe9 that became the kind of North Star vision for what it meant to be excellent in role, excellent as a salesperson within George's sales team. That vision of excellence, all of the skills, the behaviors, all of the attributes were embedded into the excellence profile. And what Pipe9 enabled George to do was to give feedback to his team members, to each of his team members, feedback based upon the profile, So that was the first step. George completed feedback, and each individual member of his team also completed feedback. And they were also able to reach out to peers and other people that they were working with across the organization to get their feedback about the work that they were doing based upon the profile. And then in step 2, what George was able to do, and each seller was able to do, was to view the results of that feedback. Now, here's the critical part. Because what Pipe9 enabled George to do, and enabled each of his sellers to do, was to kind of get synced around the results of feedback. So an individual seller could go into Pipe9, they could see their own feedback results, and they could see George's feedback results, and any feedback results that were coming in from across the organization. And that feedback was kind of aggregated up into a view based upon feedback of the work they were doing against this profile of excellence. And what that enabled George and his individual sellers to do was to kind of get aligned around where that individual seller is in terms of their journey towards excellence in role. And getting aligned is really important, because unless a manager and a salesperson are aligned in terms of where that person is in their journey towards excellence, it's very, very difficult for coaching to be effective. So don't do coaching, don't start coaching with George's point of view before I get aligned in terms of where each member of my team is vis-a-vis the profile. That's what Manager Sync in Pipe9 enabled George to do. And once they were aligned, they could then move on and have much more effective, much more constructive coaching conversations. And those coaching conversations were orientated around development priorities, because the results of feedback is that development priorities get created, and those development priorities are personalized for each member of George's team. Every seller, as a result of going through feedback, gets their own development plan. And the plan is all about the skills that they need to develop in order to grow. And remember, those skills are all based upon developing excellence and becoming excellent in the role that they're doing. So George was able to go in, take a look at individuals' development priorities and have really constructive conversations about, okay, here are your development priorities. What types of things do you need to do to really move forward with these development priorities? Now, what are those things? Well, who are the experts that you could reach out to help you develop these skills that you need to develop? What are the types of resources that you need to be using that can help you develop these skills, all at the right time and the right moment? So what Pipe9 enabled George to do was have coaching conversations about, look, these are your development priorities. These are the experts that I recommend you work with, you reach out to. These are the resources that I recommend you use to really help you develop those skills, those next skills that enable you to grow in the role that you're doing. Then as those one-on-ones continued on an ongoing basis, what George was able to do was track their progress against those development priorities. Because one of the things you can do in Pipe9 against development priorities is create tasks of activities and actions that you're going to take against completing those development priorities. And so you can then start to track those tasks and track the completion of those development priorities over time. So this is the platform that George used to really drive the performance of that median group of sellers within his sales organization to an incremental performance gain of 20%.